It hit me like a weed brownie, bro. I sat, had a whole giant spoonful, didn't feel anything in like an hour, so I had more. Didn't feel anything for an hour, so I had more. Didn't feel anything for an hour, so I had more, and then bam, I was gone.
Welcome to the New Age Sage podcast, where you come to free your mind from all the things that keep you in suffering. Today's guest is Kevin Crenshaw. He is a love coach. We talk all about relationships and how to find love for those of you who are single. Please like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Kevin, welcome on the show, brother.
Thank you.
So, in my experience interviewing people, there's always some earning or initiation towards knowledge that we each know what we know based off our own experience and our own pain and trials and tribulations. So, for all your knowledge and love, which is beautiful to see, talk to me about what it took to gain that knowledge. What heartbreaks? Yeah, what heartbreaks? So tell me your story. How you actually got to learn so much about love.
Experience, honestly. I think curiosity and observation, and a lot of pain. I mean, I got started in this. My ex-fiance, who was my first girlfriend ever, ended it, and then 2 relationships after her cheated on me as well. And it was like, what's happening? Like, what? Like, I'm loving these women so much, and I'm being cheated on, and it was just so confusing and painful. I mean, it left me in a suicidal depression. I actually attempted, and was like, what am I doing? And that's when I really caught myself, and I was like, okay, something's off here. And I asked myself a question that I think really drove home the message that into getting me to where I'm at today, which was, and this is also something that I teach, is how am I creating this experience? And so I asked myself, how am I creating this experience? And I was like, oh, I have something to play in this too. Even though they, did whatever they did and the relationships ended and all that, I was like, oh, I'm extremely codependent, and I was needy, and I didn't really have a sense of self outside of validation from women. And there's a lot to navigate in that. And
would it take you to have that realization? Because most people can not even realize it until they're dead. You see, 6-year-olds, old people in relationships are still fucked up, and many friends we have, or I have, you can still see the most kind, sweet woman being treated like shit and be okay with it. So, what did it take you to finally be like, you know what? What snapped you out of it?
I think I was just in so much pain that I, for myself, didn't see another option other than facing my truth and literally looking myself in the mirror, doing mirror work. I locked myself in a room and stared myself down and kind of had this conversation as my ego or my personality and my higher self. And I don't know how long it was, probably a few hours, but I was like, we're here. What's up? What's going on? And I just got really fucking raw with myself. And that's when the truth showed up, because I wasn't putting on a fucking front for anybody else. It was just me and me in that room. And that's probably one of the most powerful tools that I still use to this day, and also help my clients, is mirror work. You just have a conversation with yourself. Be honest. The eyes are the windows to the soul, but so often we think of that in like eye gazing exercises and shit.
Yeah.
You could do that with yourself and really connect with your truth. And so when it's just you and you, and man, you come out of the room a better person, because you're integrating more parts of yourself. And that's when I was able to get real with myself and go, and I have all those awarenesses. Whoa, you're really codependent. Whoa, like you don't really know who you are outside of what the relationships. And I wanted love so bad from them because I didn't really have it for myself.
When did that start? Like, when did that way of thinking or that wounding begin for you?
Birth. Childhood, just stuff with my mom and that dynamic growing up. Nothing wrong with how she raised me or what happened there, because relatively speaking, it was very safe. Yeah. And I put the responsibility on myself to soothe my mom when she was feeling disturbed, or she wasn't regulated in her emotions.
How do you rationalize that? Because I had the same issue where it's like, I wasn't beaten. I was provided for. I was relatively fine.
Same.
But I was still fucked into pain. I still felt abandoned. I still felt all these things.
Because trauma's not just physical.
Yeah. So how do you rationalize that for you to like, because I see some people who just can't buy it. Who just can't go there, who just can't feel like
Right.
I was in pain because my life was okay.
Trauma is relative to the person.
Yeah.
There's also emotional trauma. Trauma is also neglect. So even if you had all your
The largest
financial
trauma.
needs met, and
The largest trauma.
exactly, and that was it with me and my dad. He just wasn't there for me.
Yeah.
With like physically, he was just disconnected, and he was always working and stuff. Probably shifted when I was in like first, second grade. He was there for me earlier on, but it just, that is traumatic. Think about if you were to just not drink water, you get really freaking dehydrated and your body would go into a state of shock eventually, and you would have all these symptoms. You need water to survive. Well, humans need affection and love and connection, and we have emotional needs too. Not just, are you physically safe and you're not being beaten or yelled at. Like, to think that that's the norm now is just so weird. But I want to go back to one of the questions you asked me earlier, just really fast, about how I got to the shift that I had, right? I mentioned mirror work. There's a book called Creating Love by John Bradshaw, and his work, I found it later, or pretty recent. But it's kind of what I did, which is, he calls it demystification. When you're in love with somebody who is abusing you, or you're in a fucked up situation and you can't get out of it, or you're literally in a trance, like hypnosis, because of your childhood experiences or experiences with exes. Somehow you put yourself in a trance to think that abuse or that neglect or whatever is love. And if you had that experience growing up of neglect or abuse, you'll seek redemption unconsciously in your partners. So you'll choose partners who model that same energy, and you get that same hit of chemicals in your body. And then and almost unconsciously, you're like, okay, now I'm finally going to be enough. I'm finally going to be compliant enough, or loving enough, or achieve enough, so that they can finally give me the validation that I've been looking for the entire time. But really, we're the only ones that can give it to ourselves. But really, you were looking at it from dad, from something that happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's fucking deep, but he coined the term demystification, and you're mystified. You're walking like you're in a trance.
Yeah, that's why I kind of believe that most of us don't really know. I don't mean this egoistically, but most of us don't really know what love is.
I would say that's accurate.
Because we're just repeating what we're.
Well, dude, look at fucking Disney. Yeah. Disney did us dirty. Like, there's so many stories about what love is shown to us as a little kid when we're like absorbing that information. So if we didn't have proper modeling, and the only modeling we had was Disney,
you grow up in this
and Disney stories,
porn, and then for a woman it's like 50 Shades of Grey,
and that shit.
Yeah,
it's like you're not really set up to do it successfully.
Yeah,
and that's really the predicament I see. Just a lot of us are in is where's the proper modeling, and we're kind of lost in our own ignorance with love.
What's the largest illusion you see that society perpetuates about love?
That it's a place to get something. Like, that relationships are a place to get your needs met, instead of a place to give, or a place to explore, or really a bond to create. I think people enter into it because they don't feel loved, and so they want to get it from another partner. A lot of people, maybe not consciously, do that. To put it blanketly out there, because there's so many nuances to that, I would say that's a large part of the population.
But back to your point, it's perpetuated in mythology, right? It's this common myth that everything will be okay, and all our heroic tribulations or pain is all gone the minute we find the queen. But that's the minute it fucking starts. Yeah, like Mario and Princess Peach. You're beating all these levels, you're beating Bowser, and you get Peach, and it's done.
Yep,
it's not how life works.
All the movies, and then they get married happily ever after. But that's literally the start of the real inner work. Like, relationships are the greatest ceremony that you can do, better than any plant medicine. Get in an intimate relationship with somebody. That's the most spiritually evolved dojo you can go to, more so than, in my opinion, like meditating in the Himalayas or going to see plant medicine and shamans. Like, I've done all that shit, and I can tell you that when you're in a committed relationship with somebody who's also aware, that has brought up, for me personally, more of my stuff and helped me evolve and grow into a better version of myself, more than fucking anything. And I think that's part of where the term soulmates comes into play, is because if we look at it through a spiritual lens, we're getting into relationship to evolve because we can't go there on our own. And there's totally different lenses that you could look at that, but this is at least my belief.
In your story, what was the main wounding you saw come up for you? Like this kept coming up over and over again that was asking you to heal? Because in my story, I kept attracting the same kind of woman over and over again until I healed. And this is, I think, this false belief that we have is that, once we break up with someone over an issue we don't like, that it's never going to come back. It's done. Mm-hmm. Until you heal that part of you that's attracting it, it's going to keep showing up over and over again.
100%.
And that's what I realized. I kept attracting the same woman over and over again until I was like, all right, I got to
It was emotionally unavailable women for me.
In what way?
Like hot and cold, super hot and cold. They wanted it, but they didn't. I've been in relationships where it was all secret and under the table. Like nobody could know about it because there was an age difference. I've done a lot of that stuff and I kind of sabotaged what I really wanted. Just, okay. Like I was just desperate. Like, okay, yes, but like I'll do whatever type of energy. And that was me not really holding my own and staying true to myself. Codependency was a big thing. If we just want to blanket term it for me.
What does that really mean? If you could define it.
Being reliant on another person's, mirroring of you or their validation of you. And that's kind of like how you perceive yourself. So if everything's great, you're lit up and everything's fucking fantastic. If they're replying to you on time, if they're like, if that person who's closest to you, you almost need them for validation because you don't have the sense of internal self. That's one definition, one way to put it. At least that was my experience. And, I didn't really have that sense of self. I never really developed it. But how it started for me is because I got it from my mom. I got a lot of validation from my mom growing up and like almost approval or like, okay, you can do anything type thing. And then my first girlfriend who became my fiance really helped me come out of my shell. So the feminine energy in my life like supported me so much that I was like, okay, I want more of that. But it became a need instead of a desire or like, not because desire's endless, but like a preference, an interest. It became a need in my life. And if things weren't okay in my love life with somebody or I was single, it was just like I was rotting inside. And it took a lot for me to wake up to that and to build my own sense of self. And it's honestly still fucking there sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I'm in an amazing relationship right now and sometimes it still fucking comes up. And, that's where part of this is like, there's no there,
Let's create a blueprint for people. So let's think of someone, a guy or girl who is in that space where they derive all sense of self and validation from a romantic partner. What should and can they be doing to start shifting that inwards where they don't depend on others as much for that validation?
Ask yourself, what do I really want right now? And give it to yourself. Because so often you're focused on the other person's needs or the other person's desires or what's the other person doing today. And you start orbiting yourself around their life. And we lose sense of our own needs. And then we build resentment on the other person because they're not meeting our needs. And it's so twisted. And if we really want to go down the rabbit hole, codependency is a form of manipulation. It's let me love you so you'll love me back and never leave me.
Yeah.
It's not just let me love you.
Yeah.
And so if you can fully take ownership of that and see that, you can start to navigate the situations in your relationship, in your love life differently. But to start to really heal that, I would say, ask yourself, what do you need? What do you want? Because for a lot of us, we neglected it in childhood or we neglected it in relationship, and start to fill up your own tank.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is like, I need a hug or I need somebody to listen to me right now. Great. Then ask somebody and support, and sometimes it doesn't always have to be your partner. Like don't place everything on them. That's why it's important to have your peer group as well.
Yeah. Like I agree with the basic argument you're saying. It's kind of like giving love to yourself and learning to love yourself, before and instead of just depending on someone else for it. But to throw in a kind of counter argument, not to disagree, just to, in my experience, because I used to think that way a ton until I reflected and I was like, it's a little more complicated than that.
Totally.
My experience is that I've had a lot of self-worth issues in my life. You know, I've distanced my mom. When I was growing up, I was bullied by like the attractive, hot, cool girls because I was like fat and had terrible skin issues. And so for me, I felt like I was never worthy of female love. And then I hit puberty, I became somewhat, you know, attractive and got, you know, build, was an athlete. And then it started coming my way, but I never felt worthy of it. I was like, what the fuck are these women wanting with me? Started having like going from getting nothing to having the most beautiful woman starting to like me. I was like, what the hell's going on? I felt like so confused. And then when they did come, I held on to them so tightly because I couldn't live my life not having that validation. Mm-hmm. Back to my original point is that once my ex-girlfriend, who was amazing, you know, beautiful, kind, everything, the fact that she loved me made me kind of realize what I was worth.
Totally.
The fact that I had someone like that love me, I felt like, holy shit, I'm actually worthy of this in some way. So how does that play into it? You know what I'm saying?
I love that you're bringing this up because that's also true. Like, well, the rabbit hole we're going down is like the current state of Instagram therapy, I like to call it. You know, it's an hypervigilance. It's not hypervigilance. It's an over-reliance on yourself. Hyper-independence. That's what I meant.
It's a trauma
which is also a trauma response. And so, yes, love yourself. Yes, meet your needs. And we need each other. Right. And it really is a spectrum. So if you're operating on the codependent side, where you don't know your needs, you don't know your desires because you're always meeting other people's needs and desires, it would be helpful for that individual to start to rely more on themselves. Yeah. Right. But somebody who's more independent by nature, it might be more helpful for you to serve and give and be with others. And you know, so it's a spectrum in that regard, but it's a both and conversation. Yeah. It's not either or. And the only way, I'm going to use the N word. Let's talk about narcissists for a second. What really happens there? It's a trauma. It is a form of trauma, and they develop a strong ego to protect themselves and to survive. And it's kind of all like self-developed, right? They're very selfish. So a lot of people that I talk with aren't that, but are like, that's all the kind of, if you go into this self-love thing too much, I've seen it. I've talked with self-love coaches who are totally narcissistic because you're all about yourself and you're so absorbed in you. There does need to be a reflection or a blend and a mirroring from other people that has something to do with your own sense of self.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you're just isolated and developing this sense of self, like where are you getting this feedback from unless you're just creating it in your head? Then you're disconnected from reality. And that really doesn't leave room for true love. Because to answer your question, like, or what you mentioned before of like, not a lot of people are connected to true love or know what it is.
Yeah.
It's because we're mystified and we're living an illusion. And whether it's in our own heads or we're acting out a scenario from our childhood or trying to have redemption for something that happened with an ex, or there's a stuck energy and stuck words that we never said to somebody and it's coming out in resentment towards your current partner. Like there's so many weeds that get caught in the way of just being present with yourself and present with the other person.
Yeah. How do you navigate that line between like narcissism and the self-help kind of process and just healing yourself? Because in my experience, you know, I do fully believe in the law of attraction. I do believe that what thoughts you say, what you believe, you know, you're going to start attracting your way. But then I'll find myself kind of having these affirmations like, you know, I'm confident, I am lovable, all this shit. And I catch myself and what the fuck am I doing? Like, you know, there's this line between like, what's that line for you where with like the ego build up or using affirmations or kind of building your self-worth up and at the same time, because, you know, it's kind of opposite to the Buddhist mentality I kind of follow, which is just to be here and to understand
lack of self.
Yeah, that we're, it's just like two complete opposites.
It is.
How do you balance that?
It's a both. Can you have a strong sense of self and then not live in it? Yeah. At least that's been my experience. And I'm in a current season where I'm looking at parts of myself that I don't like. And so I would say probably in the more immediate present moment, my self-worth isn't optimal because I'm revisiting some of these things that I did that I haven't fully grieved or forgiven myself for.
What are those things?
And mistakes that I've made in in business, mistakes that I made in miscommunications, mistakes in ways that I ended things that I'm like, dude, you could have done better than that, right?
Regret,
And
regret. It's like pieces of
regret, but I'm grieving it. I'm finally allowing myself to process it instead of just moving on because the past is in the past, right? And so I'm really looking at that, keeping myself humble, because I could just be, oh yeah, I'm the fucking shit, and like all the time.
Yeah.
And I tried that. Like I when I went through this season, because I was the shy nerd kid that didn't really talk to anybody except for my immediate group of friends, to like super confident. I did that. I built my confidence kind of through will, and it was a pseudo confidence because it wasn't really grounded. And I was trying to prove myself still that I was confident. And then I had a near-death experience that kind of humbled me. And that's really when I started moving forward with a lot more, you could just say grounded.
It's a good
groundedness. It's not necessarily confidence. I'm just fucking present.
Yeah.
But it comes off to other people as confident.
Yeah.
Because I'm not running from anything inside of myself or anxious and on the edge of my seat for something. Like I'm just here and I got nothing to hide and I'm willing to go anywhere and everywhere. That actually is confidence.
Yeah, there's a big difference between up here and here. You know, when I speak to someone, I can tell if their confidence is an illusion created by their mind. It's just like this willpower, as you said, because I've been there too, and and it's even more powerful. I can just feel it in their body.
Yeah,
when it's an essence in them, it's just there. Holy shit, this dude's the truth, and so it's like an illusion we create for ourselves. Like it does work. We end up. I think it's useful on the come up when we're like. It's useful when you're really like just like feeling terrible and there's nowhere to go, and you want to make a career out of yourself or do something or pull yourself out of a hole. It's useful, but it's not sustainable. That's why I was making a weird transition, but it's like even in dating, like when we're playing games and shit, when we're seducing someone or putting on a persona
front, yeah, it's
like it's not us in some way. It's the same kind of argument that the jig's gonna be up, so it's almost you have to do both. So how can we actually do that? Get the essence.
I want to answer that, but I want to go back on confidence for a second.
Yeah, go ahead. Because
there's this preconceived idea, I think, that we need to be confident.
Yeah.
Who says that? Why? Like some of the most amazing things in my life have happened because I was vulnerable. I just shared where I was. Not because I was confident and could fucking do it and believed in myself, but even the moments when I didn't fucking believe in myself, but I shared it with somebody. Like that's building connection. I would rather be connected than confident.
Maybe just shifting the definition of confidence to what you're saying is what I think it is kind of a full acceptance of all of you. And it's not like...
Right, you're whole.
And that whole includes the inner child who was sad, that teenager in you who was, nerdy, didn't get many girls, or me too.
Yeah.
Like that's what confidence is. It's kind of creating space for all these different parts of ourselves, even if we don't like them.
Well, a lack of confidence comes from shame. It's like, I should be doing something different, or I should be this, I should be able to talk to girls, or I should. And when there's a saying that when your mind is full of should, your heart's full of shame. And so really when you release the shame, you're naturally going to be confident because you're naturally going to be whole in your own essence, because you're not trying to put on a mask or a front. And going what you just said about, the dating scene, people think they have this idea of who they think they need to be in order to get love.
Yep.
And that's where we abandon our inner child. That's where we abandon our sense of self and we disconnect and we become unwhole. And we then live in a state of achievement or a state of anything that's not actually us, and we make it us as our ego. For me, it was overconfidence. I thought I needed to be confident, so I ruptured from myself, and I had this persona of Kevin Crenshaw who is extremely fucking confident, and I thought that's who I needed to be in order to get love. But that was the time in my life where I felt the least amount of love, and the more confident I would get, the less I would feel it. Even though that's how I thought I was going to get it. And, it's like going up, you're wearing a mask, your mask says confident on it. And then you go on a date with somebody else and they're wearing a mask and it says, surrendered on it. And y'all have so much chemistry and it's so amazing and da-da-da. And then you get in a relationship and stuff happens. And then a month later, somebody's going to get triggered or tired and their real self is going to start to show. And then the other person, but who the fuck are you? And there's going to be this weird dynamic and something changed and I don't know why he's acting this way or they're acting this way. It's the real self. And so that's why it's so helpful to really kind of do some of this work if you can, before you go into those situations. So you don't live a masked life and get in a masked relationship and have a masked marriage. And you're still trying to put up this front. What if you were to just be yourself and that's enough? You know, and my girlfriend even said it to me today, like, people just want the raw you. Like, fuck, you're right. And I'm even having to be reminded of it from time to time, right? When nobody's fucking perfect. And so I think it's the awareness of all of this is what's important, not the perfection of all of this.
Yeah. Because
we've all got our masks. We all put on fronts. We all do. You know, there's a reason I wear fucking hats like this and put a card in my hat. And like, I like playing that persona sometimes.
That's the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Making avatars.
And can you allow yourself to be all sides of yourself?
Yeah.
And not run from any one of them?
Yeah. That one point you made about, you know, when you were saying that once the mask leaves in your argument, you see the real self. That, in my experience, that until you confront and befriend and learn to love that side of you that comes out in arguments, that dark side of you, and you learn to integrate it and not have it leak out, it's not only for you. You actually end up attracting someone who can also do that, right? Yeah. Back to that point, like if you're wearing a mask and you deny those sides of you, you're going to attract someone to the same place. When you get into argument, just like, you know, two different people talking. So what's your take on how to handle disagreements or moments in relationships where people don't see eye to eye? Like, what's the main thing people are doing wrong, and what's the way out of it?
I think a lot of people their energy is saying, no, you just need to hear me. You need to see me. You need to hear me. You need to see me. You need to get me. Both people are doing that.
Yeah. And
that's the disconnect more so than the disconnect. And if somebody can make a shift, and I call it piercing with love. If you can get out of your own shit for a second and your own feelings about everything and pierce through whatever they're showing you. Maybe they're angry, or maybe they're confused and they're hurt or something, and see their inner child and connect to that. There's a shift in energy, and it's like, let me hear you. And you kind of just hold space and allow them to unravel. And then somebody gets heard, and eventually they'll be in a space to hear you. And now you're on the same page. Maybe not in agreement, but you're on the same energetic wave. Right. And so I think that's the biggest thing with arguments or disagreements when couples aren't on the same page with shit. It's, you need to hear me, and there's a disconnect in the communication. What's being said isn't what's being received or heard. And that could be one or both people in at fault there for that. But really it's some proper communication skills and somatics, which is a blanket term, but let's call it the nervous system, the body. Tools that I give couples, like when I coach couples, it's one of my favorite things to do. And I do a lot of coaching around how to ground each other and remind each other's bodies that you're with your lover. It diffuses any bombs that are about to go off in arguments. And there's so many little subtle things that you can do throughout your day to remind yourself that, like, oh yeah, this person I love, not consciously, not with words, but with your physical body. And like one of those things, Stan Tatkin, he was on my podcast, awesome dude, wrote a book called Your Brain on Love. And, he shares a lot of amazing tools in that book. And one of them is called reunion hugs. So when you haven't seen your partner in a few hours and you come into the same room together, hug each other. And until one person loosens or takes a deep breath or a sigh or something, that's regulated their nervous system. And then you can go about your day and you can catch up, say whatever. But that has been helpful because you're not bringing work or errands or wherever you were at in the energy of what happened into the relationship. You're keeping the relationship, like you diffuse it. You're present with your partner. And then you can move in. There's other things like even navigating conflict and talking about how to do that in real time somatically. A lot of that can be changing your state. So if y'all are at it, going at each other with something, this is one that I still have yet to remember to implement for myself, but this is something that I've shared with clients, is to get on the ground. Just lay on the ground next to each other. And it's the silliest, funniest thing, but like, you can't really yell at somebody when you're laying on your belly. Yeah. You know, you're like this and you're like, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah. In that,
it's a change. You change the scene of where you're at. And so your brain goes, wait, what? And it interrupts the mystification that's happening. Because a lot of times in conflict or arguments in couples, what's really happening is you're reacting to the situation from the hurt place inside of you that thinks that it's in a similar state from before. So it's like you're replying to your boyfriend as if he was your ex or your dad.
Mm-hmm.
The energy, not the words, not what you're saying, not what you're arguing about, but the energy, if it's unresolved from those things before, is going to come out on your current partner. So that's...
Yeah, and what you're saying is this truth too, that we have to, if we're coming from that space of, because it's not, as you said, it's not even that we're treating them like our father. We're speaking from that space when our father hurt us. We're speaking from that like still stuck energy place of wounding. In that, what I'm saying is that sometimes you have to create space from the trigger, create space from the feeling.
Yeah.
To be until you can actually listen to them, right?
Right. Sometimes it's like, hey, let's shelf this. Like we need space.
Yeah.
And then come back together.
Yeah.
And when if anybody out there is going to ask for space, know what your partner's attachment style is, because sometimes that could be further disrupting for them.
Yeah, that was the worst trigger for me.
Yeah.
Whenever, I mean, people do this. It's the worst. I'm always like, why the fuck is it? Maybe you feel it too when things are getting heated and I just can't and just walk out the door.
Yep. That's the worst thing to do.
Like, what the fuck?
one of your roles as a partner is to help your partner feel safe.
Yeah.
And so even if you need space, can you communicate to them, I need space. We'll talk about it later tonight. That enough gives them the reassurance that you're coming back and then you're not abandoning them.
People, for me with abandonment issues, that was my childhood, right? Yeah. I would be crying about something. My mom would be like, "Oh, and just leave the house." All love to her, but that's what happened, right? So when that happens with people, and a lot of people experience that, whether it be not even leaving the house, but actually just leaving the room or something. For someone with abandonment issues, it's like World War III. The nervous system would just
yep. You're instantly boom. Now you're back to the
you're re-traumatizing yourself.
3-year-old you. Yeah. And your mom left or something. Yeah.
Yeah. What's some of the things that in your relationship like, you're aware of to not do? Because I think let me actually ask a different question. Let's talk about this topic. That when you're dating someone, it's a weird line. You kind of are and aren't responsible for the nervous system in a way. Like, yes, I can't control what triggers you, but if I know what triggers you deeply, I kind of need to be careful around it. I don't have to walk on eggshells, but it's a way of phrasing shit. It's the kind of responsibility you have to take.
It is.
So how are you doing that in your relationship, and how important is it to do that in all relationships?
It's extremely important. I would say in all relationships, but it comes up in intimate relationships more frequently because you're intimate with the person. So you're going to see all their stuff, you know? And it really varies from person to person, but if you can get to know your partner and their triggers and their past, and then be mindful when stuff like that comes up. And you know, I was actually the worst at this in the beginning of our relationship. She would have stuff trigger her. And I'm like, I didn't fucking do anything. Like, what the hell? And realizing that my response was actually what she was triggered by. Yeah. Right. And it's like, oh no, because now you don't see me. Now you don't hear me. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't fucking do anything. I'm innocent. Right. And I think that's what a lot of people go to. And in case you haven't figured out, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect in this, but, being mindful of their wounds and being able to meet them in that. And there is a dance, because there's your role as a partner in knowing how to not trigger your partner and knowing how to hold space for them when they are triggered. There's various triggers. There's abandonment. There's cheating. There's lying and manipulation. There's so many things, right? So maybe if your partner has been lied to a lot and that's a big trauma for them, they might like always ask for reassurance on things, and it might annoy you. And you're like, what the heck? But if you can see that for what it actually is, you'll have a lot more compassion. And then there's twofold. Because then your partner shouldn't always rely on you for that reassurance. They also have inner work to do to heal that thing from coming up inside of them anyway. Yeah. Right. So that's where both people get to take ownership of, I'm going to make sure that I'm holding space for you in the right way, that I am helping make sure that you're not getting triggered in this way. And I'm going to provide a safe space for you to experience something different so you can allow the opportunity to heal. And you've got to go into that fire and figure out what caused that and forgive the person or release that stuck energy. So it doesn't come up anymore. Yeah. And then when both people are there for a sustained amount of time, inevitably things are going to get worked through and it's not going to be an issue anymore.
Yeah. What's your take on this? I used to think that whenever I'd bring up that topic of abandonment or telling a partner, hey, this triggers me, I feel like a bitch. I feel like, I'm not masculine right now. That I'm not able to, just part of me was feel like a pussy right now. I'm not like, is there some truth to that? Like, what I mean is that, like, I do think it's important to have communication. At what point for men or masculinity is it a point where you're just kind of being weak? And it's a hard thing to say because I never think it's weak and I have all love, but at some point, like if you're a man and you're constantly like blaming your partner for triggering you and doing all this shit, like there's a very fine line between being open and being unmasculine. You get what I'm saying? It's a tough line.
I would say in that situation, it's not necessarily a masculine, feminine thing. That's just, are you over reliant on your partner? Yeah. Or are you taking ownership? And I think what's coming up in what you're saying of like, man, I feel weak right now, might be the shame because you think you should be over it. And it's like, can you love yourself imperfectly and allow somebody else to love you imperfectly?
Yeah.
You don't have to be there. You don't even have to take all your fucking masks off. Can you just be, can you show your real self and allow them to love that? Because if you're not showing your real self, I'm talking your real self, part of you that has shame, the part of you that has a mask, the part of you that has resistance or all these things. If you can show that to somebody and they love you for it, this goes back to what you said before, it fucks with your brain because you're like, wait a second, I thought I needed to be somebody else, but I'm getting love for the real me. Oh shit. And that's really magical. And so if that's the real you and then somebody doesn't accept it for whatever reason, they're not meant to be in your life, or they're judging themselves because they're not able or willing to go there.
Let me rephrase it. Actually, coming to mind now.
Yeah,
it's all about how you go about it.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Like what I mean is, I think if you're a man because I think any man who's an abuser or controlling or gaslighting or any of that, it comes from the same wounding. It's just them trying to gain power back from a situation they didn't have power back as a kid. 100%. So I think that's one bad way to go about it. Another bad way is to just not. When I experienced my first relationship ever, was I just never said anything. Mm-hmm. Like whenever they trigger me and do shit, I just like I could not lose them so much because she's beautiful and popular. I just couldn't like imagine life without her. I just didn't say anything, and I was dying. I was dying inside,
sweeping it under the rug. And
then the right way to go about it, in my eyes, is just communicating how you feel without placing blame.
Yep.
That's just all it is, right? Like if they're doing something that is not harmful, just the way they are, and you're triggered, just say, hey, I'm feeling this way. You done nothing wrong. I just want to give voice to it. Like, see me for it in some way. That's kind of the secret sauce.
It is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that true in your experience?
100%. Yeah. That's a really good point.
How are you doing that now in your relationship? Are you communicating like that when things are
as best as we can? Yeah. But most definitely, I would say that was the thing about last year that I recognized, was I was sweeping things under the rug. And I had so much tension and turmoil and confusion about our relationship. And I didn't even have fucking awareness that I wasn't speaking up. I was just like, why am I feeling this way? What's happening? Like, and then I'm having these thoughts about her that's not how I actually think about her. Like, what the fuck's happening? Oh, you're not just speaking up when things aren't okay, or you're not asking for space when you want fucking space. Like, you have a voice too, Kevin. And that was something that I had to go through.
And if you're with someone who gets like icked out or doesn't find that attractive, that you're communicating that, as you said, it's the wrong person. There's a
mismatch in values.
Yeah, because that's not a conscious relationship. I know it's a cliche term, but it's a big difference. You can tell when a relationship's conscious versus when it's not. What I mean by conscious is just having that communication of speaking to what's vulnerable for you, what's showing up.
100%.
Yeah. I want to take a kind of a U-turn about your experience, because you mentioned about a near-death experience, and I want to hear all about that and how it got you to where you are now. You said that was one of the massive drivers in your journey. So what would you actually experience when you're in it? Like an actual direct experience? Because what's fascinating to me is one of my nerding out topics when I have people on the show. Surprisingly good amount have had that. And it's almost always a very similar experience. So curious about your journey, and then also like what the message you got from it is and how it changed your life. I'm going to give you a break to digest all this amazing information. And in this break, please comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you.
So I was doing plant medicine. This was my 8th time sitting with Wachuma. Sat with it before many times, and with a shaman, properly cooked. And what happened was I was with a mentor of mine, and she was like, let's just do a private sitting and do this whole reset, because I was like burnt out from something that I just got done doing in business. It's like, yeah, that feels really good, let's do it. Something in my body was like, and she kept bringing it up, and I'm like, okay. And I just kept saying okay, kind of going along with it. And when I look back, man, my body was screaming for me not to. And I was just like, no, it doesn't make sense. Let's just do it.
What was the feeling that was strung up for you? Like
tension in my stomach. I was just, my body was a clear like no, but I couldn't say it because I had already committed, and I'm a man of my word, so I'm gonna fucking commit and all this shit. So, I didn't know that this person wasn't really a shaman and didn't really even know the dosage when we got there. It was it was an Airbnb. It was just me and her, and she didn't even know how much to dose me. And it was powdered instead of cooked cactus. And so, if you think about the process of that, cooking it, you're like, it's love, it's nurturing. Powdered is dehydrate it, shove it in a blender. It's like you're destroying the spirit of the plant, really, in a lot of ways. And so I found this out later, talking to a few other people, that like anytime they had powdered San Pedro, it was a horrible trip. And I was like, interesting. Well, I had a shit ton. So it hit me like a weed brownie, bro. I sat, had a whole giant spoonful, didn't feel anything in like an hour, so I had more. Didn't feel anything for an hour, so I had more. Didn't feel anything for an hour, so I had more, and then bam, and I was gone. Seeing things that were just gruesome. I mean, to put it frankly, it seemed like I was in hell. I was terrified in my body, which freaked her out. And then I didn't feel safe because she's over there puking and freaking out. And I'm like, that's not helping. And I didn't have a gag reflex until I was 2. I threw up. The last time I threw up was when I was 2. And so I couldn't make myself throw up. And she was like, I need you to throw up. I need you to throw up. So I did 3 giant salad bowls worth of rainbow colored shit, like black blobs and stuff. I probably cleaned out my gut microbiome and bile and all this other stuff. So it was pretty painful for me to do that. And it expanded in my stomach and completely destroyed my gut in a lot of ways. It took me 2 years to heal from all of that. But in the immediate experience, I reached this point where there was a tunnel and a light. And I felt like I was continuously falling backwards. And I was just going off into this space, and it was like a surrender. Like, oh my God, I'm relaxed. I just want to relax, because it was all this intensity, and I'm like, I can relax. And I was relaxing and relaxing and relaxing. And I got
How close you got to the light?
Yeah. And I got this vision of being stabbed in my neck. And I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, I know what this is. And I snapped up and pushed her away, because she was like, had her hand on my neck. And I was like, what the fuck? I literally thought I got stabbed. It turns out I did, spiritually. And there was an entity in my neck that came out from a shaman about 1.5 years later. So that wasn't just a fucking vision.
Where did you contract the entity?
That.
Oh, from the psychedelic.
Whether it was her or something through her.
Or in the realm you went into.
Stabbed me in the neck. And I saw Reiki practitioners. And they're like, it seems like you have shards of glass in your neck. Yeah, because I fucking pushed her away as the thing was in my neck or whatever. Like, I don't know too much about it. I had a lot of neck pain for a really long time. My gut, I had IBS and leaky gut. So
maybe the stab saved you because it took you away from the light.
Maybe. I was like, fuck this. I'm coming back. Like, this is not my time. I have a fucking mission, and I'm here to, I very clearly decided to come back.
That's like what's crazy is that's like the main point I hear across all experiences is this snap decision. Not like maybe like a fuck yes. Yeah. Like, I need to come back. My work's not done here. And the people I've interviewed who had it, it's the same shit. And the minute they say that, it's like, they're
boom.
Back.
And then you're, yeah. And, man, I was high for 3 days and psychotic for a month. So I lost all sense of self, of time. I wasn't taking care of myself.
When you say psychotic for a month, what does that actually mean? What did
hearing
you experience?
voices, seeing things. My sleep circadian rhythm was all out of whack. So I was just waking up at odd hours. I thought I was, I didn't know I was Kevin. Like, it was very odd. And I knew enough of psychology to know that I wasn't okay. And I was trying to mindset my way out of it. And I held a knife and was about to slit my throat. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, randomly, just like, let's see what happened. Like, and I was like, whoa, this is not okay. And I took myself to a graveyard, and that snapped me out of it.
How?
I just fucking cried, man. I'm like, I'm over here stressed about finances and this thing and this other stuff and what happened to me. And I'm fucking alive. How can I not be so fucking grateful? And I just broke down, and I remember I had a journal, and I wrote down, breathe for those who can't. And that was the beginning of me coming back. And I was like, okay, my body's not okay. Let me focus on my body, not my mind. And that's when I started getting help, realizing I had leaky gut and all these things. And it affected my pituitary, my thyroid. I was not well for about 2 years, and I'm still kind of 80% back. I'm on the tail end of healing that now. And to be honest with you, there's a lot that taught me in terms of a lesson, like why it happened. And I'm still unpacking it. One of the biggest things is I became trauma informed and really got to understand the nervous system and trauma a lot deeper.
By healing yourself.
Because I had to heal myself out of that experience. Yeah. And so it shifted my work. It shifted how I relate to humans. I got way more grounded, right? Like I said before, like the confident me, like whatever. I fell back into just knowing my truth and living from that, not giving a fuck about all the other shit, realizing how fragile life is. I mean, I had been suicidal before that, but like actually rubbing up against that, like, dude, that was accidental. I got poisoned. Like, holy fuck.
Yeah,
you know,
it's crazy. I have it wasn't psychedelic, but just hearing a parallel in my story. It isn't near death, but I was placed on, I think, around like 8 to 9 psychiatric medications.
Fuck yeah.
So for me, it was like a similar experience. For a couple of months, I didn't feel me. I didn't know who the fuck I was. Yeah. It was just this concoction of meds in my brain where I would just depersonalize. Like, I had no idea who I was. It was like this weird feeling. I actually, grabbed the knife, put it in my wrist multiple times. Just a feeling of like, what the fuck? And then thankfully I snapped out of it, but it just, I look back at that time. I even have, I'll have tears come every now and then just for how grateful I'm to be out of it. It just,
same.
I understand why I had to go through it, but it's just like,
yep. I have spent so many hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars healing myself from that experience. And also it's taught me a deeper level of forgiveness, a deeper level of trust. Cause I came back from that experience. Actually, no, it was right before that experience. I had a bunch of trauma around money, and I kind of hustled, made everything okay, and then went straight into that. So I was still kind of integrating some rage that I had towards other individuals, that I got to heal afterwards. And really, it ultimately, I think I was also a very extreme individual, and I still am in some ways, but it was, I put myself there. God put myself there, where it's like, okay, dude, like I was just not in alignment with the real me. And that apparently is what I needed in order to snap back to the real me.
So let's pick apart the pieces of healing that got you to where you are now from that. So what are like the main components?
Forgiveness. I had a shit ton of unprocessed rage and an anger that I didn't realize.
From the betrayal, from that,
from a lot of shit. Yeah.
How do we go about releasing that? I think especially everyone, man and woman. I'm about to single out men, but it's like, how do you actually release that rage?
You find a safe space and let it the fuck out.
Let it rip.
That's what I did. I even take clients to rage rooms every once in a while.
Is there a difference in like being seen for it at the same time, or do you want to do it like on your own? Is there?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I've been witnessed, and I don't know how. I think it was neutral. I don't think it helped. I don't think it hurt. It was just kind of was. Maybe it had an effect, because I've also done it where I just got it out of my system, and nobody needs to fucking see it. I've done that too. But I find myself even now in life, and this is something I came across yesterday morning, so this is very fresh for me. But whenever I have a hard time experiencing joy, it's because I'm not facing my uncomfort. I'm not facing my anger or my sadness. I'm not experiencing the full range of emotion. So you shrink because you don't want to feel that other thing, but it also prevents you from feeling happiness, you know? And so for me, I was just numb and because I had all that stuff. So forgiveness, processing anger, a lot of, I wouldn't say grounding, but just coming home, a lot of somatic awareness. I can know when the slightest, it's almost like I'm getting like the spidey senses sometimes. Like I know when the slightest fucking thing's off because I have that strong of a connection in my gut now because I've healed it literally. And my work, you know, like the work that I do, it's helped me with kind of integrating a lot of different perspectives and modalities and understandings that I use with people. It's brought that all clear. And there's still more that I'm unpacking. I mean, even now it's like I was on this trajectory. In my opinion, that was a good and in alignment. And then pop, nothing. And I've been trying to like kickstart back to that. And I've been trying like all this other shit. And I'm in a state right now where I'm honestly fucking frustrated and confused because I don't know which way to go in terms of career. Because when I know a way, I'm going to fucking sprint. But there's something that's like either a confidence thing, ironically, or it's not aligned. There's a pivot that gets to happen. And then I have a lot of resentment and I'm struggling to forgive myself for building things the way that I did and then just dropping it. And I didn't really have a choice because I was fucking dealing with all this stuff. But it's, you know, the whole saying like never quit, like just keep going and you'll have success and all that shit. I was doing that for a fucking decade. I was homeless at one point, sleeping out of my car, like begging for food. You know what I mean? To go from that to making $250,000 a year and living in my dream apartment, like that to me was like, dude, you're fucking keep going. And then that happened. And so I still don't know why, but
there's some fear that happened again.
Yeah. There's just like, damn, more so like, okay, you were on this trajectory and it just got ripped from under you.
Why is there so much emotion in you about those experiences?
Because it's fresh. Because I'm unpacking it more so right now. I think, you know, it happened 3 years ago. But I didn't have the emotional, physical, or mental capacity to unpack it. I just needed to get well. You know, like I remember I was in Tulum. I was nomadic for a bit. And I got an IV drip because I was like, dude, I'm dehydrated. So I got an IV drip. He puts the needle in me. And within 3 seconds, I just start crying. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. It was just, my body needed to process emotions and I didn't have the fucking nutrients, the water in my system to do it. But it was on the fucking surface. And so I feel like my gut's healed. I'm healing a lot in my muscular system right now of imbalances that I have and holding patterns because I was nutrient deficient for so long. I also lost like 45 pounds of muscle. And my body's just kind of like coming back into rhythm and homeostasis and all this stuff that I have the capacity to look at it now. And it's just extremely fresh. Like I'm talking the past 2 weeks, I've been like diving back deep into this because I'm rubbing up against some stuff in life that I'm like, you know, what's next?
Maybe your body had that wisdom in a way because if maybe you couldn't have healed yourself in the way you needed to.
Yeah.
If you were also dealing with this component too, right? Maybe you had to get your hydration, nutrients, like your muscles in sort before you can now have that space to do it. It's so fascinating. The ability of the body to do that. It's
almost like if you had an iPhone update. This is the best analogy I can say. If you had an iPhone update, but you only had like 5% battery, you wouldn't be able to update it.
Yeah.
You would need to plug it in. And I was just having trouble plugging it in the proper way to get to the 25% battery you need or whatever to update it. And it just took me till now to where I have enough battery to where I'm like, oh shit. All right, let's go do this update then. And I'm just in that spiritual update right now.
What is the update? What does the update entail?
I still don't fucking know.
Figuring it out?
Yeah, I'm figuring it out. It's around purpose, mission, which I feel like I have. I think it's evolving. There's a book called Who Moved My Cheese? Have you ever heard of that?
Heard of it, haven't read it.
It's about a maze, and these mice go to this where the cheese is, and then somebody moves the cheese, and there's the mice quickly change and they go, oh, it's not there anymore, and they find it. But then there's these little people, and they're called him and ha. There's him and hawing, and they're like woeing that somebody moved the cheese and complaining about it. Meanwhile, the mice are already at the cheese. And I feel like my cheese got moved. My sense of joy, fulfillment, my mission, my purpose, it evolved. And I'm like, okay, I get to now align to what it is. And I just don't have the sense knowing of it yet. I just know it moved. And so that's currently where I'm at, which is very raw and real place to be. And it's the natural cycle of, you could say, a death and rebirth of your identity. You know what I mean? This is a part of it. Okay, cool. Like, it's not to avoid it. Let me just sit in it. And when I sit in the uncomfort long enough, I'll find the answer. But, it's nothing. I've been through worse. So that's just where I'm at now.
Yeah. It sounds incredibly ceremonial.
It is.
Especially because of what was actual, like.
I don't need to do another fucking ceremony. I'm in one right now.
Yeah.
And I know that I sense and know that something big is on the other side of this. And I just have to trust and let it come to me, and instead of what I did before, which was seek it out, figure it out, write a 500-year business plan and make it happen now. Like, I literally did that shit before. And I think that's part of why I'm in the position I'm in now, is like, okay, you get to find it in a different way. And it doesn't come from that mask of confidence or I'm going to make it happen. It's, okay, God, where do you want me?
It's that line, don't do it as much, but be it in a way.
Yeah.
Where, I still am the same way. And I think you and I can share this ability just to have vision and go.
Yeah.
And I have that trauma response where it's useful in some ways, where I only got love for doing shit as a kid and being smart and all that stuff. So it's in me to just, I'm actually happier to be working all day and to sitting on my ass doing nothing. It's just my personality.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to do that, but you can't change yourself through something else that's not you, right? You think you can change yourself through working hard or getting that money or that car or that apartment, but it's not you. None of that stuff's you. So this is actually the harder journey is to, change the internal system.
Yep.
And then the new life will kind of come to you. But what's so scary about it is that, if you can see, like me too, I can see success somewhere in my timeline. I see it like really coming.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck it takes to get there. I have no fucking idea. I'm investing in things, I'm doing things, but I really have no idea. It's that, why do you think that is? That it's so frightening and so scary and emotional when we can see this thing that's so beautiful and amazing, but yet in this present moment, we have no idea how the fuck to get there.
Because you feel the gap.
Yeah.
You're sensing the gap from where you are to where you want to go. And it's a rubber band. It's like, and there's a lot of tension there, and you're going to want to be there, and you're not. And I think it's also a beautiful place to be because you can catapult yourself to there. But
how do we actually enjoy the process?
You are present with where you're at today. I get to be present in this uncomfortable position, figuring it out, because I may never be in this position again. Once I figure it out, maybe I figure it out and then that's it. I'm set for life and I live my dharma and all this shit. Not to say that I'm not doing it now, but like, it's special. It's kind of like missing your kids growing up, You're never going to be in that position again, and you're never going to be in this position again. Even if you do go through another death and rebirth cycle, you'll never be in this one. So I think it's just important to be present in the journey, because one of the other exercises that I do is I meditate on my deathbed, and I imagine that I'm 80 or however the fuck old we're going to be when we die, and I've lived a full life, and I think about what I would regret. I look back to my 29-year-old self now and go, man, I wish when I was 29, I really would have. What's the first thing that comes to my mind? Boom. That's the thing you got to do. And for me right now, I wish I would have just been present with it.
Yeah, I can say that, but I can't be it. Like, I have the same exact exercise. I always look back. I do it the same, but also different. I look back at me 2 years ago when I was just starting on doing now, and what would I tell myself back then?
Yeah.
When I was, working all day and worried about the outcome and not, I was just like, just enjoy where you're at. Even when I was, alone in a new city, Austin, with no friends, nothing, I'm just like, man, just trust it.
Yeah.
Just fucking trust it and just be present with it. But here I am, and I just can't fucking do it. Like, I'm trying my best, but just not like, it's still not encoded into my body. It's not down into my body. I can intellectually understand it, but my body is still like this, like, resistance towards the thing. So I'm working at trying to integrate it into the whole system.
One thing that helped me is sentence yourself to life. What I mean by that is don't be optimistic. Like have a ceremony, like in a meditation with yourself, or a guided thing. This is something I do with clients where you lock yourself in for life, where whatever your current shit is, your masks, all the stuff you want to change, all the success you want to have and that you don't have, it's just going to stay that way. You're never going to have the thing. You're never going to change and get out of it. You're just keep spending money and nothing's going to change. Like, stop the optimism and just imagine yourself to think that that's going to be forever. And there will be, if done right, an immense amount of anger and rage and sadness that comes through. And once the wave of that is over, you fall into this crazy amount of acceptance. And it's, in my experience, the most quiet energetically I've ever been in my life, because you're fucking present. You don't care if it happens or not. And you've integrated your shadows, all the things you want to change. And you're just here.
Yeah.
And from that place, you get the most wild amount of clarity ever, because you're clear within yourself.
Yeah.
And that's how I would say. Because really, it's an avoidance to feeling an emotion. It's not an avoidance to the present moment. The present moment has an emotion in it that you're scared of feeling. And you don't, maybe not even consciously know what it is.
Yeah. It's a weird line of manifestation. Words. I do believe in it for sure. And kind of visualizing stuff and doing what you can to get there and co-creating it. But at the same time, it's not healthy, or it may not be beneficial for it if you're needing it so much.
Yeah.
If you can't be present where you're at to get there. And that exercise, it kind of sounds like you're sabotaging the manifestation. But in reality, you're actually making it even better.
Yep.
It's just like,
you're just getting present.
Think about it with love, right? I always, because I understand dating like you better than anything else, business, or just understanding it well. And romance, it's like when I've in the past needed a partner, needed to love, and held on to them so tightly, they ran away.
Yeah.
They just slipped.
Yeah.
But when you kind of are holding their hand in a dance, and you accept it, and you love it, and you're trying to do everything you can today to make it work, it stays with you.
Yep.
You feel like it's kind of the same shit for your aspirations.
I would say so.
Yeah. In your experience.
Yeah. It's been, it's a weird thing, because, gaslighting, we kind of gaslight ourselves sometimes that it's going to be better one day, and we think it's better than it is. And if we can just stop that and get present with what is, that's really winning the game of life. And that's where you demystify, and that's not just in love, but it's with your fucking life, man.
Yeah.
You demystify everything. That's the real power. Because then you're living you can move through the fucking matrix. You see how everybody else is living in an illusion, or in their own made up identities and beliefs and shit. And it's not to judge, but you see through it, and you're able to kind of just navigate your own path instead of, trying to play along with that or play along with somebody else's thing. It really gives you a superpower that I don't think a lot of people either have experienced or talk a lot about.
Yeah. On that point, there is some, let me try and say this carefully. There is some truth in thinking that once I accomplish that thing, then I'll be happy. Let me back up for a second.
Yeah.
On a surface level, no. Like, the car's not going to make you happy. But validating our argument, it's that if you actually trust the journey and you're present with it to get that thing, if you trust the journey to new level, if you trust the journey to success, if you trust the journey to that manifestation, and you're present with it, and you learn the lessons, you will enjoy it. It will change you. It's not the thing itself. It's a process to get there.
It's a process, yeah.
And taking the codes, taking the lessons that then actually make you that person. So it's not actually the thing, right? And now it's starting to make sense for me now. It's the journey and the lessons you learn on the way.
Yeah.
That gives you the gift.
Right.
And the gift is, it's a symbol of the actual manifestation, but it's eternal.
Think about it like if you just asked somebody for something and they had a lot of money and they're like, yeah, here you go. You would get the thing and be happy for a little bit and then whatever. But imagine if you grinded your fucking ass off for 5 years for it. You treat it a lot different, because there's lessons that come along with it versus it just being given. Yeah. And I went through that experience myself because, especially as a kid, kind of got everything that I wanted. I was very spoiled in that way. And then life slapped me and lifed me, and I got to really understand the value of things from my own work.
Yeah, and my experience too was, again, going back to that younger version of me who was, overweight and had no game, no girls. And once that moment came when I was 19, 20, and, I was top of my class, any girl I wanted in college, was popular, had friends, which was crazy for me. I felt depressed because it didn't change anything. But because it was all from the ego. I didn't have the awareness to actually take the lesson away. I just said I have to make a will a way for this to happen.
Yeah.
And I ignored everything on the way. I just only focused on the outcome. And once it came, I felt like shit because I was expecting it for everything to change. I was expecting the girls, the popularity, the success to change something, but it couldn't because I was still me. Yeah. I was still the same exact fucking person. It's this illusion that we all find ourselves fall into.
Yeah.
But it's just the way we change ourselves. And to hit one last topic before we wrap up, to capitalize off your knowledge, let's speak to those who are single right now, to those who are conscious, who can feel that they benefit from love and benefit from a conscious partner. What should they be doing on their day-to-day life to prepare themselves or to find it? It's brutal. It's hard out there today, man.
In a very practical sense, make a list of the person that you want to manifest, and then make a list of what you want the relationship to feel like, and then make a list of crazy, weird, detailed things like.
Give an example.
Yeah, like their views on money and or where y'all would want to go vacation together, like. Odd things where you're like, that wouldn't be a coincidence, and really get to the root of what it is that you're wanting in a relationship, what you want that experience to be like, and color it out. Don't just bullet point shit. Like so many people make a list and they do like one sentence per line, like write a fucking book about it. How detailed can you get about that experience? And can you get your senses involved in it and really make it light you up and turn you on? And then when you're done with it, this is the hard part, is you look at where you're not a match yet for that. So, example, they're really good with money and you're not. Oh shit. All right. Well, I get to get on my money, or they take care of their body and you could definitely do better at that. Fuck. All right. Let's do better at that. And then you just you see the gap and then you work on becoming a match for that person and that relationship and learn the skills. If you want effective communication, like, do the mirror work and go, where on this list am I a match for that? Or could I work on it? And go through each thing in that list and be honest as fuck with yourself about it. Then you have literally a roadmap for your inner work of what you get to do. And can you work on it and be open to the possibility of them meeting you while you're on the journey to that? And you're not there yet because it's not about perfection, but that's going to kickstart you in the right momentum and the right frequency to meet that person. And you got to be open to how it happens, because I've met people where they'll make this list and then bam, they meet the person and they're both not there yet, but they desire the same thing and they kind of work through it together. And then there's another side of things where you get there in terms of your inner work and you're finally a match for that list and then you meet the person. So detached from how it happens, but that at least puts the focus on what you can control, which is you, and it gives you a North Star to focus on, and then being open to the miracles and of love happening.
It's practicing self-love.
It is.
Yeah. Did you do that? Did you do that process?
I did, and it turned out better than my list.
Huh.
So my list actually didn't go into as much depth, and I also met my current partner when I was like not wanting to be in a relationship. So I didn't re-up my list. And so I looked at, because after every relationship, I would kind of like, well, I learned that I don't want that. And I actually do want this. And I would go through it, and I just hadn't done that process in a really long time. And it was a lot of things that were on my list and more that wasn't on my list that I actually did want and need that I just didn't have the awareness of at the time.
Was there anything else you did to prepare yourself for her? Remember you mentioned to me a while ago there was celibacy for a bit. Did that affect things?
Yeah.
People?
No, I mean, my celibacy journey, I overworked. So I didn't really work on anything internally. I just avoided for some time. And maybe that was helpful. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know what happened. but everybody's journey is so unique. So maybe you don't need to that, you know. I have a podcast where I interview couples who've been together for decades and they're still passionately in love. And the stories, it's all over the board, man. Like, there's not one formula for meeting your partner. But the closest thing we can get to a formula is be yourself and follow what love feels like. And you're going to run into them. And maybe it's your forever person. Maybe it's a temporary person, but be open.
Well, in those interviews, what are the universal keys for success? Another question attached to that is, what's the, not where they meet, but how do they meet? Is it unexpected?
It's all over the board. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Either unexpected, planned marriages. I've talked with age gaps. I've talked with friends for a while and then they got together. Instant, you're my person, want to get married. Like the first time they ever met, like wild shit, man.
There's not. It backs that point. There is no rationalizing love in some
There's not. But across the board, one of the things that's most common is you both individually need to walk the talk of value and growth. Mm. If you don't, the relationship's going to fucking tank. So each individual needs to actually value growth, not just, oh, it's a good value for number one on my value list. Like, you actually will live it. That's really important for it to last.
What do you mean by that when it applies to a relationship? Like,
because you're going to hit your shit and you're going to get called out on stuff. And you know what I mean? And are you going to be able to rise up to the occasion to hold your partner and their triggers, to hold space for you? Like, it's a growth opportunity.
Yeah. I noticed my last relationship on that point is that when there was an argument, that what helped was me coming up with kind of a curriculum or homework for both of us to do. Like, even if I was in the wrong or she was in the wrong, it's being like, we both have some growth to do here. We both have two unique points of growth for the week and month that we should be doing and be accountable for each other, how we're actually doing it.
Yeah.
That was helpful to me, which validates your point. Just like mutual growth.
Yeah.
Not, 'cause I think people can fuck up where it's like they're blaming one partner for most of the shit. Like, right. It's on you, Johnny, for all the bullshit, but it's you're part of the same dance. So it's giving each other that homework.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mutual growth, space, like literally apart from each other. That's one. Having rules, like agreed upon methods of operation for the individuals in the relationship. That's been helpful. And honestly, more sex. And then, I've had one couple, like they had a list. And it was like, own your shit. And if you, or they said, own your farts. Like, if you farted, admit it. If you fucked up, admit it. Honesty, being brutally honest with yourself so you can be brutally honest with the other person. And then, I've also interviewed couples who are open and couples who are monogamous, and it's all kind of all over the board with that. And just, you got to be in alignment with that. You don't need to change that in the middle of the game, because then it can be very confusing and messy. So know yourself as much as you can. And as much as I say all this stuff and all the Instagram therapy shit out there is like, love yourself before you get into a relationship. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't fucking love myself before I got into a relationship with my partner. Like, if we literally look at it, that season of my life, I was not in the most self-loving Kevin ever. And, it's not like, oh, love yourself or you don't. Like, I was just kind of struggling in that department. And it happened, right? And then also some of the couples that I've interviewed, it's like, maybe that's not uncommon. So yes, always work on self-love, but it's not a prerequisite to relationships.
Yeah. That's it. Hit a last point. What role does sex play in a healthy relationship? Like, how can we use it as a metric as to when things aren't going well? Like, what is the role? What does healthy sex look like in a relationship, and how can we know when it's not going well?
How the sex isn't going well, or the relationship?
Well, it's like, how are they tied? That's my question. How are they tied, and why are they tied, and how can we use both as like sex as a reference point?
Right. Sex is, Esther Perel puts it, is that sex is a place to go. So in a similar way with a relationship, are you using the relationship to get validation? Or are you using sex to just get a feeling and distract yourself from something? It's all about your intention with it. And life has its seasons, man. I know for us, it's like there's seasons where we do it more and we do it less. And it's like, just life. And so I think that you don't want to overanalyze it, but have a presence there. Because if you don't communicate about it, yes, we do a relationship drop-in once a week that's changed the fucking game for us. We go over our calendar together. We plan date night. So we know what we're doing. We ask for support if we need it. We talk about sex and what our needs are there, what our desires are there. We talk about anything that we've withheld. So if there's something that even if it's a compliment, something that we didn't say, and we're holding on to, or we swept under the rug, that's the opportunity to just let it out, let it rip. And then we acknowledge each other for what we're going through. And we're like, hey, I really see you in this. And we have an opportunity to see each other and the relationship. That has changed the game, doing that as a non-negotiable once a week. And so for that reason, we talk about sex, and every relationship is different. So I can't really give anything there, but use that check-in to at least talk about it. Get to know your partner in that way.
Yeah, it's kind of a good answer to my question is that I've had a relationship where we don't talk about it. It kind of just happens. You know what I mean? Like, and one person's kind of like, I want to have sex. Others like, and then you kind of like go back and forth that way. But when it's a talked about thing where you talk about your desires, your wants, how you're feeling that week, if you're actually, libido's up, or if you're not feeling it, I think that's actually the answer to my question is just the key to how sex plays in your relationship is just talking about it.
Talking about it, yeah.
Because most people actually don't, which is crazy. Some people, it's like a chore. And
especially
the husband rolls over and the wife's like, oh, okay, whatever.
Talk about it outside of the bedroom.
Yeah.
And you can learn a lot, fellas, guys, from just talking about it with her outside of not making it a weird thing. And talking about it is going to help you be better at it, because you're going to know what she wants, and you'll get to express what you want and your curiosities. And it's just a win-win, because sex is one of those things that just is weirdly not talked about or overly talked about. And the same thing with money, right? And if we can kind of just bring those taboos, it's a really weird thing, to more of the light in conversation, it loses its negative charge. You're able to it's just another thing. And you're able to actually live in a harmonious relationship with another in that realm.
Yes, sir. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and being vulnerable with your own story. And where can people find you and learn more about your work?
Heartguy.com or The Heart Guy on Instagram and TikTok. YouTube is Kevin Crenshaw. And yeah, I've been doing what I've been doing now for the past 7-ish years. And so I'm excited to see where this pivot takes me. So I'm in a weird situation right now.
We'll see.
But yeah. And then if this is coming out before July 9th of 2023,
it is.
July 9th, having an in-person event called Unlock Love in Austin, Texas. And it's a 1-day intensive where you're healing and removing blocks around intimacy. So if any of this resonated, I would love to see you there.
Amazing. Go check it out, guys. Thank you very much again.
Awesome. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to watch more content, please click this video right here and don't forget to subscribe right here. Thank you.